Well, hello, friend. Welcome back to the podcast. I have something to tell you about what happened over the last 75 days because I think it's going to change how you think about growing your business. And honestly, when I look back at the data, I'm a little blown away myself. My email list grew by over 200%. Yep, you heard that right. 200% in 75 days. Now, I have been slowly building my list for years, okay? This is years in the making, but after years of what I would consider slow, steady progress, I think I may have finally cracked the code, at least the code for me and my business. So today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what I did, what worked, what I would do differently, and honestly, what this whole experience has taught me about what might be the most important thing you can do, in my opinion, to grow your business going forward. And here's the most amazing thing about it. Every single subscriber who joined my list in these last 75 days came through a relationship. Let's dig in. So my kids have joked with me for a long time, really as long as I can remember, that almost anywhere I go, I either know someone or someone knows me. It's humorous at this point, right? And as an introvert, it seems a little hard to believe, but I have come to know that the Lord made me to be a connector. And as this process unfolded over the last few weeks with my email list growth, I'm realizing that intentionally building relationships has got to play a larger part in the strategy of building my business. So I want to start from the beginning. Like so many of you, my email list has kind of ebbed and flowed over the years, all right? My list is not large, comparatively speaking. And for a while, I was doing what so many of us do. Podcast guesting here and there, showing up, sharing my work, creating lead magnets, throwing them out there, seeing what sticks, and then pivoting, right? And it was growing slowly, but surely. A few new subscribers here and there, like there was movement every single month, but it was slow movement. Now, podcast guesting is valuable. You know that I love podcasting, okay? I want to be clear about it. It builds credibility. It gets your name in front of new audiences, but for raw list growth, at least for me, it wasn't moving the needle the way that I needed it to, okay? Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop podcast guesting because I do believe that there's a lot of value in it, all right? But podcast guesting as a list building strategy, you're borrowing somebody else's audience for an hour, maybe 30 minutes, and then it's over, okay? So whether they become yours really it depends entirely on how compelling your offer is in the podcast and how quickly they act. And if they feel like going to the show notes to grab a link or they happen to remember your website. Some do, but let's face it, most don't. This year, one of my main business goals has been to grow my list. So I needed something, I'll use the word stickier, okay? Something that put me in front of people who were already warm, already trusting of whoever was introducing me, and gave them a real easy, keyword there is easy, reason to say yes and join my world, okay? And that is when I started leaning hard into collaboration. So I want to define what I mean by collaboration because it's a word that can mean different things to different people. I'm not talking about vague networking, okay? I'm not talking about showing up at a Chamber of Commerce meeting and hoping that you find somebody that, you can connect with, all right? I'm not talking about tagging each other on Instagram. I'm talking about intentional, structured partnerships where both parties bring something of value and both audiences benefit from it. All right. And then these last 75 days, I did 4 different types of collaborations. I'm going to break them down for you. Okay. Podcast guesting, which I've done before. I've been podcast guesting for the last 2 years. And it brought in a small number of subscribers. All right. Then I participated in a couple of bundles where I contributed a resource alongside other business owners and we collectively promoted them to each other's audiences, each other's email lists, all right? And then I participated in a summit sponsorship. I've never done one of those before. Frankly, I don't think, at least not in, I can't remember, ever doing a paid sponsorship before. Okay. So it was paid opportunity. I researched and chose it very strategically. And this really is at a time where most people in my position, when they have money to put toward marketing or advertising, they're putting it toward Facebook ads. Okay. I decided, because I am not on social media, that is not some place that I want to put my money for marketing. And so this summit sponsorship was super strategic for me. And then the last type of collaboration that I did over the last 75 days, really, it quite honestly drove the most growth of all four, was my very own workflow exchange. That if you're in this world, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I ran the workflow exchange in March, and it was incredibly successful, like more successful than I could have imagined. So each one of these worked differently. Each had a different entry point. Each one taught me something about how relationships actually function as a business asset. So I want to break down each individual piece, okay? First, I'm going to start with the workflow exchange. That was my own event, all right? Honestly, it was the one that I was the most invested in because it was mine, right? And because it was mine, I'm glad it performed the best, because it would have been a little embarrassing if it didn't, right? So here's what it was. I gathered 10 businesswomen, each of whom agreed to contribute one workflow that they actually use in their business. A real working process, something they do on a regular basis that makes their business run better or pushes it forward, okay? They contributed that. Then I created a lead magnet around that collection of 10 workflows, and each one of these 10 women promoted it to their own audiences, okay? So think about what that means for a second. 10 women, 10 audiences, one lead magnet, all pointing to my list. Now, I knew most of the women that I invited, but I had a few topic gaps. There were workflows that I wanted represented that I didn't have the right person for yet. So instead of just skipping those topics or settling for somebody who wasn't quite the right fit, I went to the women that I already trusted, that I already have a relationship with, and I said, who do you know? I relied on referrals from trusted people. So those referrals did two things. First, they filled the gaps in my workflow exchange with genuinely excellent contributors. And then they extended my relationship network in a way that I could not have predicted, including one referral that led directly to my second highest performing collaboration of the four, which was the summit sponsorship. So follow the line here, okay? I start the workflow exchange. One of the women referred me through the workflow exchange because I had a gap to somebody that she knew who contributed a workflow. And then that woman, 45 days later, had an online summit, and she invited me to sponsor it. Now, I want to be super clear. Sponsoring a summit is not free. It's a paid investment. So I know that not everybody can do that. A lot of people in my position, like I said before, when they think about marketing, they default to running social ads, but I chose this instead, and here's why. Number one, a summit audience is warm in a way that a social ad audience almost never is. The people registering for that summit already trust the host. They're already interested in the topic. They're already in the mindset of learning and growing and investing in their business. So they are incredibly warm leads. So when I show up as a sponsor, I wasn't interrupting somebody's scroll. I was being introduced by somebody that they have already said yes to. And that's the difference between borrowed trust and cold traffic. And borrowed trust converts at a completely different rate, as you can imagine. The relationships that I'd built, starting with the workflow exchange, flowing through a referral, put me in the room for an opportunity that I probably would not have found any other way. This is a compounding return on relationship, and I for sure will do it again. Like, it was a super positive experience. I believe that if I had to compare what most people get as a click-through rate on a Facebook ad compared to how many new leads I got from this summit sponsorship, my sponsorship would win. All right. So now I want to talk about the bundles that I did. Bundling, or being a part of a bundle, is probably one of the most accessible collaboration types for somebody that's just getting started. So I want to spend a little bit of time here because I think it might be really good for you. All right. What is the bundle? It's pretty simple. It's a group of business owners, kind of like my workflow exchange, that would have been considered a bundle, A group of business owners each contribute a resource, a guide, a template, a mini course, a checklist, a workflow. Each one is structured a little bit differently, okay? And then they collectively promote the bundle to their individual audiences. Everybody benefits from everybody else's reach. My bundle contribution was a private podcast lead magnet. And again, the key was audience alignment. The other contributors in that bundle were speaking to women who needed what I had to offer. So when their audience found my resource, it was relevant to them. And so they opted in. All right. Now, I do want to say this. Not every bundle is worth joining. Like I said, I've done 2 in the last 75 days. One of them was, I would consider successful. The other one, not so much. And both of them took the same amount of work. Okay. So not every bundle is worth joining. I will be more picky next time. I learned some stuff this time. Some bundles have so many contributors that your resource just gets buried. Some have an audience that's not quite aligned enough. The collaboration itself isn't where the magic happens. The relationship is where the magic happens, and the fit, right? Those are what make it all work together, which leads me to the most important thing that I think I can tell you today in this podcast. I've been talking about 4 specific collaborations: podcasting, bundles, paid sponsorships, and my own event, the Workflow Exchange, all right? But what I really want to say that I hope you understand that made all 4 of them possible comes back to relationships. Not transactions, not cold pitches, not DMing strangers with a business proposal, not sending podcast pitches through an email. Relationships. The Workflow Exchange worked because I had existing trust with most of the women that I asked to participate, and they trusted me enough to refer me to others. The summit sponsorship happened because of a referral rooted in relationship, and it opened a door. The bundle worked because the relationships in that community meant that the audience was actually aligned. I believe that building relationships in business might really be the most important thing that you can do to grow, period, full stop. Not just for collaborations, but like literally for everything. We spend so much time optimizing our content, our funnels, our lead magnets. And those things matter. You know I believe in them. But the fastest, most sustainable growth I've ever seen comes from the genuine connection with people who are already doing what you want to do, serving who you want to serve, or walking where you want to walk. That has been my experience over the last 75 days. You know how there's some verses in the Bible that just stick with you, especially in certain situations? Well, when I'm with other business women, I think about the verse in Proverbs 27, I think it's 27:17. It says, iron sharpens iron, right? I think about it a lot in the context of business. You need people around you who make you better, people who stretch you, who refer you when there's a gap because they trust you and they trust your work. The relationships you build today are not just about today's collaboration. Friend, they compound. I have seen it in my own business. The woman that I met through a referral for my Workflow Exchange led me to a paid sponsorship opportunity that became my second highest list growth driver of the entire last 2.5 months. I could not have predicted that when I sent the first email asking for a referral. Do you see how that works? That is the nature of relationships. You don't always know what they'll become. You just know that they're worth investing in. So I want to bring it back to you because I don't want you to walk away from this episode thinking, well, that's really great for you, Jan. I'm so glad your list, grew by 200%, and then not do anything with it. Your email list, friend, is one of the most valuable business assets that you own. I talk about it a lot on this show. But a lot of us treat list building like it's a solo project, like it's just us, our lead magnet, our website, hoping that somebody finds us, which for sure is part of the strategy. But what I've learned is that list building really is a community project. When you collaborate with the right people, you're not just sharing their audience, you're getting their endorsement. It is a transfer of trust when we, friend, are in a trust recession. And that right there is worth so much more than you can ever imagine. So today I'm going to leave you with this. 202% growth in 75 days. And I did not post one time on social media to make it happen. Every single one of the subscribers came through relationship. Some I've had for years. Some I met through a referral just a couple of months ago. Some I connected with through the structure of a bundle I joined. But all of them came through a person who trusted me enough to make an introduction. That's the strategy. That, my friend, is marketing without social. So your action step this week, think about one woman in your industry, somebody who serves a similar audience, whose work complements yours, somebody that you genuinely respect, and reach out. Not with a pitch, just to connect. To say, hey, I've been following your work and I think there might be something here. You don't know where it leads, but that's the point. You just start. So if you found this episode helpful today, which I hope you did, share it with somebody who is trying to figure out how to grow her business, maybe her email list, without being chained to social media, because that is exactly, my friend, who this show is for. And if you are at the point where you're ready to build the online presence that makes all of this convert, the conversion part, the website, the brand, the digital home base that represents you well, I would love to have a conversation. You can find me at jantouchberry.com. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next week.